all seed oils are toxic. I'm sure you've seen it because it's everywhere. The statement is partly true. Chemically processed, adulterated seed oils are toxic, and they don't make this distinction. But to the contrary, unprocessed, organic seed oils are essential for great health. 1% processed in a teaspoon leads to every one of those 100 trillion cells in your body being assaulted by 30,000 defective molecules. Now, I know martial arts, but up against 30,000 non-martial artists, I'm dead pretty quick. Short term, it may help you. There's TV ads, I know. But long term, you read the mitochondria, you'll get congestive heart failure. You'll also end up getting skin cancer because it gets displaced everywhere. Cancer cannot progress in a highly oxygenated environment. So there's two things. If the cancer gets too bad and becomes malignant, you can't reverse it. If it's at the worst stage, you need a surgery or kill it. Inflammation is now known as the root cause of the majority of disease: cancer, heart disease, COPD, diabetes.
Hey everyone, Derek Hines here. Welcome to the podcast where I'll share with you the patterns, insights, research, and technologies that we use in my own pain and performance practice to help people improve their health, speed their healing, and increase their longevity. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy it. All right, Brian Peskin, welcome to the Pain and Performance Podcast, my man.
Thanks so much for having me.
Give me your you've been called controversial before. I imagine that has come up. Where do you? I want to kick this off. Like, we're gonna start with a bang. Where do you think that has come from? Why do you feel like some of the community has called you controversial?
It's a very good question. I give state-of-the-art science, Doc, and everything I give is in the world-class medical textbooks, like Textbook of Medical Physiology, Harvard's Illustrated Biochemistry. I never just give my opinion. So to me, I'm the least controversial guy there is, but I'm counter to a lot of the popular opinion, and they don't like it. I'm very anti-fish oil, and we'll hear about some of the reasons why, but I specialize in giving physicians and healthcare community science they probably haven't seen before because it's not in the clinical journals that the doctors read. It's in Journal of Lipids, molecular biochemistry journals that never makes it into the clinical. So I focus on physiologic EFAs, anti-inflammation, disease prevention, but the applications to accelerate weight loss and minimize exercise time are pretty profound. And I typically specialize in consulting with physicians around the world, but today I'll give general audience-based, understandable science. For example, fish oil was a wonderful first cut at EFA science, but we've advanced the understanding significantly over the past 30 years, and we'll also clear up the rampant confusion on the internet about omega-6 plant seed oils and fish oil. And here's an example of what they're saying. All seed oils are toxic. I'm sure you've seen it because it's everywhere. The statement is partly true. Chemically processed, adulterated seed oils are toxic, and they don't make this distinction. But to the contrary, unprocessed, organic seed oils are essential for great health. So organic means two things. The plant growing is chemical and pesticide free, and then when the oils are extracted, they're chemically unprocessed and unadulterated. And you must distinguish between the two or you completely miss the mark between essential and toxic. So seed oils have the potential to be either one, and this is why they're called EFAs. And it stands for essential fatty acid. I don't like the term because it's not acid like, hydrochloric acid. I get it on me and I burn. It's a biochemistry term. I call them parent essential oils. And here's it in a nutshell, Doc. My favorite quote: "We're suffering from a wealth of information, but a poverty of understanding what that inflammation really means. Yeah. And here's a good example. Inflammation is now known as the root cause of the majority of diseases: cancer, heart disease, COPD, diabetes, even Alzheimer's. And they're not diseases of just old age anymore. Everybody knows someone that got a heart attack late 20s, cancer early 30s, younger and younger. So for the past decade, I focused exclusively on anti-inflammation in the cell and have developed the most powerful anti-inflammatory medical food. It's called EZTREC. It's been on the market a couple years, and the physician community is getting results they've never seen before. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I'd like to thank Dr. Rob at MD Anderson Cancer Center for stressing the word easy, because in the beginning it was EZTREC. He goes, Brian, you need to call it easy because you have an easy solution now. So he was chair of the department for 15 years, plastic reconstructive surgery, and everything in healing is anti-inflammation, so you heal fast. 100 patients, phenomenal results. So that's a little bit about my background. And then there's 3 key things everybody needs to know, if we can get into that. But if you have any questions on my background, feel free.
I do. I've got more questions than I know what to do with on how you got to this point and started studying it, and what aha moments.
My wife became diabetic doing everything right, type 1 in her 30s. That's what got me into this. I am a degreed engineer from MIT, Mass Institute of Technology. So people go, oh, you're not in medicine. I can think, and I'm very good at complicated systems. So the input, Doc, is the food. The system is you, and the output is your state of health, your pain level, how are you? And it was, the physicians are failing me. How did I get this? Send her out to California to control her blood sugar with a top physician. Comes back, her blood sugar is actually worse. And it was like, my goodness. So MD Anderson was very nice to let me use their library, the Jesse Jones Library, even though I'm not affiliated with the institution, for 5 years. And it was a whole new understanding came out, and the science is on the left, the popular opinion is on the right, and it was, my goodness, something needs to be done here. And that's what got me started 25, 30 years ago.
That's amazing.
And then I found out of Warburg's work. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, let's break down kind of essential fatty acids for people. I think everybody hears the term, but they're like, okay, what does that do for my body? What is it needed for?
Excellent.
I think that would be a good understanding for the listeners to kind of get into where are we at and how does this information affect them?
Have 100 trillion cells. Every cell has what's called a bilipid membrane. So it's a membrane on 100 trillion cells. Half that membrane is protein, half is lipid, oil. Virtually no carbs in the cell membrane. Out of the lipid section, a quarter to a third, 25 to 33%, are what's called parent EFAs. That's LA, linoleic acid, ALA, the parent omega-3 alpha-linolenic acid. And the cell membrane is actually the brain of the cell. It's not the nucleus. Key thing, Doc, is the body can't make them. They must come from food, and they're not interconvertible like they are in a cow, for example. The omega-3 stays parent omega-3. The omega-6 stays parent omega-6. And by the way, in your body, when you do the little algebra, the ratios with tissues and organs, you need 12 times more parent omega-6 than parent omega-3. And if you look at all the foods, they're huge in parent omega-6 because we need it. So anybody telling you we're overdosed with parent omega-6 is missing what's called an adjective. They're overdosed, and everybody in America is overdosed because we're eating processed food with adulterated, non-organic parent omega-6. And this is the problem. These numbers come out of molecular biology of the cell. Remember I told you textbooks? Harper's Illustrated Biochemistry, textbook of medical physiology. And if nobody gets anything after listening to me except this one thing, I've done my job. When anybody tells you anything, sir, madam, doctor, whatever your title, where did that information come from? And it better not be a study. It better be a medical textbook. Studies are good to confirm the existing medical science, but they're open to misinterpretation. This happens all the time. And here's another big one. Everybody goes, oh, we need fish oil, fish oil, fish oil. I'm an engineer. First place I start, Doc, is how much DHAs the brain use a day? I've never seen any journal article except the ones I'm going to quote from talk about it, and nobody's referenced them. There is a number. They measured it. 2 milligrams to 6 milligrams DHA per day in the brain. 2 to 6 milligrams. Contrast that to what it translates to is 100 to 300 times overdose on a daily basis per 1,000 milligram fish oil capsule. Typically the fish oil capsule, and I'm not against fish oil, I never was, but the more I've looked at it, it's the wrong thing. It was a great first start 30 years ago, but we've advanced things. The way they came up with how much is used is with positron emission testing. They radioisotope it, and they can tell exactly where it's going. So if you have a 1,000 milligram capsule at 60% DHA, that's 600 milligrams, divide 600 by 6, you get a 100-fold overdose. Put that in perspective, take 100 aspirin, call me in the morning. Don't! I'm being very facetious. You'll die. You'll bleed to death. Don't do that. But that's the analogy. And this comes from, well, it's even worse. You have healthcare professionals saying 4 grams a day. That could give you 400 to 1,200 overdose per day. And it doesn't get burned up. It's getting shoved into the cell. We'll talk about the dangers this does. This is from Imaging Incorporation of DHA into the Human Brain using Positron Emission Testing, Journal of Lipid Research. Now, see, that's the kind of journal a health practitioner isn't reading. A researcher like me is, but it never makes it to JAMA, New England Journal of Medicine, Lancet. Those are the clinical ones. So the physicians and healthcare professionals never see it. It's not that it's hidden. It's just they don't see it.
Do you think that people are like, they're using, they're trying to use multiple studies and maybe confusing what the effects would be? Like, I know a lot of people, if they're working to improve vascular health, let's say, that in those situations, they'll start going high doses of DHA.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about that in a minute. You're going to stop that after you hear this.
So they're trying to pull, like you said, from medical journals on, okay, well, how much do we need to make a change? Unfortunately, I think it even gets deeper than that. To me, is like, are we when we're reading the studies, are we studying the right thing? Like when you start talking about, the difference between adulterated response or processed versus an organic unadulterated, are they completely different things?
You hit the nail on the head. Completely different things. Here's a couple things everybody needs to know. Everybody can convert the parent omega-3 to the DHA. They even did this in vegetarians that eat no fish. The conversion was fine. Everybody is being told we can't convert anything. That is wrong. The second 21st century finding is huge. Less than 1% of the parents get converted to derivatives. A derivative is like DHA, GLA, arachidonic acid, EPA. That's got 5 bonds. DHA has 6. So the amount of conversion is actually 0.1%. That's 1 part in 1,000. And the mistake that was made, because they didn't know at the time from 30 years ago, they thought it was 40%. So they thought every 100 parts of ALA, for example, 40 parts would go to DHA. It's not 40 parts. It's 0.4 parts. So they thought it was 100 times more. And if it was, it'd be great. Hey, be gentle on the body. Give it the preformed, right? That made sense. But it's wrong, and that mistake is killing people. Now, here's another one. So, 0.1% get converted, not 40% like they're all thinking. Key finding, 2017, the majority of cells are hypersensitive to changes of the membrane lipids induced by the diet. Inflammation is now known as the key to all the diseases except a poisoning like Parkinson's, but even cancer. The inventor of the term oncogene, MIT, Weinberg, changed it in 2010, and even at MD Anderson, they're not up on this. It is not mutations. His actual wording was, there's not enough mutations with the oncogene. I was wrong. There needs to be 7 or 8. There's only 4 or 5. It's inflammation. And the quote was, inflammation takes center stage. And nobody has seen that. The article says inflammation is key and it's a game changer. I never saw that translated anywhere. This was activation of the unfolded protein response by the lipid bilayer. Remember that cell membrane, lipid bilayer? Molecular cell. So again, a health professional is not going to see it. The quote was, and I like reading, so I give you the actual quote, the study provides a new perspective on the active role of a biological membrane that may be a game changer. It is a game changer. I saw it, I utilized it, but nobody is. And here's the prime problem we can now solve. The processed omega-6 cooking oils to extend shelf life because they're used to cook, to fry, to bake. So they're making it where they don't go bad because you can't have oils and bagels and pasta smelling like fish that's gone bad, right? So it's all to extend shelf life. It's only the omega-6 oils. The omega-3 are too reactive. Nobody fries, for example, Doc, in flax oil. It's too reactive. It goes bad. So it's oxidized. It is harmful. It's toxic. And it's not from our cooking or in the body. It's from the foods we're eating. So it's already gone bad by the processors when we eat it. And this is from one of the top German biochemists in the world, Dr. Spiteler. And I talked with him. This was out of the Journal of Lipid Research. It's called exogenous, meaning it goes bad before you eat it. And
so that's your like your canola oils, all those things that everybody's but nervous about. You know, when you start looking at, you know, your sunflower oil, safflower oil, canola oil. You know, all these things. The processing of them is extremely high.
I'm going to give you a number in a little bit that is going to shock everybody, but you're absolutely right. So my first advice to anybody, any oil, anything with fat, organic or unprocessed, bacon, butter, eggs, cheese, anything with fat in it, because all the chemical residues from the steroids, the hormones, the pesticides go into an animal's fat. So anything we're eating with fat, you want that, but especially with the oils. You hit the nail on the head. Safflower oil, sunflower oil, avocado oil. Spend the money on organic. You can even reuse the oil. They don't go bad after one fry time. I have a very tight strainer. I reuse it. I have a deep fryer that has a strainer in it. You can filter it once a month. Here's your number. Only a very small amount of processed oil is required to cause tremendous damage. 1 teaspoon of oil. Okay, everybody's eating a teaspoon in their food or naturally because oils are in all the food. You eat a steak, you're getting the oil from the fat. You eat fish, of course, it's there. It's in everything. Mother Nature needs this because, remember, they're essential. Even grass, a lot of parent omega-3 that the cow eats. So lipids, oils are there. 1% processed in a teaspoon, a little teaspoon, leads to every one of those 100 trillion cells in your body being assaulted by 30,000 defective molecules. Now, I know martial arts, but up against 30,000 non-martial artists, I'm dead pretty quick. That's the assault. They all don't go into the cell, thank God, or we'd be dead, because it goes into the cell as a proportion of what you eat, thank goodness. So if I'm eating 80% good oils and 20% bad oils, 80% are in the cell. But we don't need the assault, and that's why that inflammatory response that I mentioned in 2017 is always on. So virtually every American, unless they're a raw foods vegan or eating totally organic, is in a state of constant chronic inflammation. This is why heart disease, cancer, all the inflammatory diseases, and that's the vast majority of all diseases, we're getting younger and younger. This answers it totally. And by the way, LDL cholesterol, and then happy to answer some questions because I could go on and on, but LDL cholesterol is the transporter of these oils. If you're wondering how are they transported in the body, LDL-C is the transporter. So by taking a statin, what does it do? It lowers it, which is great. Again, a great first cut. The defective ones. Remember, you're eating adulterated ones, and they're magnetized. It's called esterified. It's a condensation biochemical reaction, meaning it just gets the water out. I'm a simple guy being an engineer. I don't like big terms, but I like understanding what it means. So just picture a magnet where the LA, the ALA, all of the essential oils and their derivatives, the derivatives are GLA and everything down the line. The parents are the LA, the ALA, parent omega-6, parent omega-3, and the body makes the offspring as needed. Now, there is an impairment I'll talk about after with all of these diseases, but that's the transporter. So the answer isn't decreasing LDL-C, it's increasing, just like you hit the nail on the head, the organic, fully functional parent omega-6 and parent omega-3 is tied to. And this is why there's no cholesterol sensor in the bloodstream. I've never seen this published either, except in the medical textbooks, like Textbook of Medical Physiology, Textbook of, molecular biochemistry. There's no cholesterol sensor. There is for everything else, insulin, blood glucose, and it's tight. 1 part in 1,000 is blood glucose. Sodium, potassium, calcium. Oh, it's a genetic defect, Brian. No, it isn't. It's called a dependent variable. This is from the engineering mathematics training. When everything else is the set point, cholesterol is what it is. And that's why they keep making up the number, and they are making up the number. It was 250 for LDL-C, 220, 200. Now, if you've had a heart attack, it's less than 70. And that is horrible. And the next thing is, and I promise you can ask all the questions you like, what's in an arterial clog? 85% is the adulterated omega-6. You don't know how good you were with the adulterated process versus that's the entire key. And dietary polyunsaturated fatty acids and compositions of human aortic plaque. Lancet, world's premier medical journal. Identification, quantification, unique fatty acid, oxidative products, and human atherosclerotic plaque using high-performance lipid chromatography. Annals of Biochemistry. Structural addition of oxygenated lipids in human atherosclerotic lesions. Eicosanoids. Eicosanoids are the derivatives. They're cell-by-cell analogy of hormones. They don't even hit the bloodstream, and they're very fast-acting. So this is the world I live in. It's highly, highly technical. It's not for amateurs. And if people you're listening to are not giving you these kind of medical textbooks and top medical, physiologic, molecular, biochemical journals, run like heck. They don't know what they're talking about. And you ask most people in the health profession, what's in a clogged artery? Well, there's saturated fat. None. None. And if you know biochemistry, saturated fat is saturated. It doesn't have any bonding capability. It can't bond anything. But what's in it? It's all the adulterated parent omega-6. I've never seen that published. Okay, now I'll stop talking for a little bit.
Yeah, no. So
shocking, isn't it?
Whenever look, we have a lot of these things in the body where it's like we need to stay in the lane to be healthy. Yeah, if we don't have a healthy lipid bilayer in that, then every cell in our body, for the most part, is going to have a really difficult time being healthy. So if we go too low on this ratio of parent omega-6 to omega-3, then those lipid bilayers can't function correctly. And if we go too high with the wrong stuff, then we create an inflammatory response that the body has to deal with. So what I'd like to kind of, I think, maybe tweeze out for the listeners is, how do we stay in that lane the best? You know, like where...
That's a question. All the foods are naturally high in parent omega-6. So the key is unadulterated, unprocessed, as much as you can. Very few foods have a lot of parent omega-3. Lettuce, grass, which you're not going to eat grass cow. And by the way, the grass is huge omega-3. Even the cow, a grass-fed cow, gets rid of most of it because it'll be 2-to-1, 3-to-1 parent omega-6 to omega-3. It's never even 1-to-1. So even the cow that's living on grass, right? Grass-fed cows in the pasture, not corn. Grass is their natural thing. And that is the key. So the organic, and then what they'll say is, oh, walnuts, because they're so high in omega-3, the Seventh-day Advents live real great. 20% omega-3. It's 80% parent omega-6. So the omega-6 is critical. And again, when you do the algebra, it's 12-to-1. You are not ever going to get overdosed on omega-6. And as long as you have a little bit of fish a week, I mean, there's cultures that have no fish. Dr. Rowan said, Brian, there's 7 cultures, no fish. They're landlocked in like mountains with no, streams that support fish. These people don't have brain damage. They're not blind with the DHA in the eye and the brain. And it has 14% DHA in the brain. There's no impairment because, like I said, as long as you get the parent, you get it. So if you want to have a salad every couple of days, you're going to get the omega-3. It's also in the food. A steak, a hamburger, chicken, it's in there. You just don't want to get it adulterated. And they even looked for heart disease, the parent omega-3. Of particular note, the fish intake was similar in cases and controls, and huge variations, less heart disease. It was the parent omega-3, not the fish oil. So the whole key is in the omega-6. And you don't need to worry about it. You can have all the eggs you want because cholesterol is not the issue. Your body makes it. There's no cholesterol sensor. So the medical community in the 1990 tried, but again, it's been 30 years, and typically the medical community is 20, 25 years out of date, and everybody's living in the past. And if you live in the past, you're in trouble because it's wrong. It's outdated. We have much better analysis today. They tried. There's no conspiracy. There's none of that. You don't need to go there. It's just the science has advanced, and it's advanced typically 180 degrees from what people were told, but it's all in the parent omega-6. It's your body's natural statin. It's called PGI2, which is prostacyclin, and this keeps your platelets from sticking together. It's called a natural blood thinner. It's not viscosity like oil. It just means the platelets don't stick together. It's like the charges are 2 pluses on a magnet. They push apart. The Nobel Prize winner in medicine, Dr. Vane, V-A-N-E, 1993 British Medical Journal, talked about it. Comes from omega-6. So this is for all these people saying how toxic omega-6 is, only if it's adulterated. Here's a great one. An amazing American Heart Association quote that's been forgotten. And here's the quote. I'll read it to you. Omega-6 has powerful anti-inflammatory properties, and this is the world I live in, that counteract any pro-inflammatory activity. Quote, it's incorrect to view omega-6 fatty acids as pro-inflammatory. This reflects a rather naive understanding of biochemistry. That's their quote, not mine. It's like these people read my work because I can be pretty derogatory sometimes. That is a naive understanding of biochemistry. This was published in 2009, Journal of the American Heart Association, 15 years ago. And look at the internet today. It's completely forgotten. It was published in the medical journal Circulation, one of the top heart disease journals in America. And it's forgotten. See, engineers build on people from the past. You watch Discovery, they have engineering shows, and the brilliant engineer of today stood in the shoulders of the super brilliant engineer from 50 years ago who stood in the shoulders of the genius 100 years ago. In medicine, there's me. What do you mean 10 years ago, 20 years ago? There's me today. Listen to me. I'm the genius here. I've never seen anybody in medicine go, this genius from 20 years ago, like Dr. Vane with prostacyclin, said it's omega-6. He gave us the key. Never. I don't know why, but engineers do that, and that's why I do it. So any of my writings, you get where this came from, and I stand on the shoulders of giants. Dr. Warburg, MD, PhD, Nobel Prize winner, for example.
I'm going to spare you my soapbox on our conversations in medicine about being evidence-based and all this stuff, and then the way that translates into practice, or the way that doesn't translate into practice. But you'll appreciate this. So yesterday I stopped and grabbed at just regular store, stopped and grabbed a fish oil supplement. I was like, let me just bring one of these in. And so I'll just to keep anybody out of it, I won't tell y'all what the name is, but so total in this is total omega-3s is 2,000 milligrams and about 1,000 milligrams of EPA and 800 milligrams of DHA.
And those two are interconvertible, by the way. So EPA and DHA, they count as one. The body takes them and can go back and forth as needed. So you have to look at them as the same. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no. So, and then the other thing that I thought was interesting is that this doesn't expire until 2026. Is the expiration date that's on it?
2 years. Let me tell you something about fish oil, if I may interject.
Yep, that's why I brought it up.
Secondary aldehydes that you want under 20. Because always people say, oh, the fish oil, it just has to be pristine and from, the Arctic. No, it's the wrong stuff. Let me tell you what fish oil is. It's antifreeze for a fish. If I throw you into a 30-degree water, you'll freeze because we're mainly water. So nature has two ways to go. Either alcohol, you'd have a drunk fish, that's not going to work, or long-chain fatty acids because they don't freeze. So that's the way it does. And then Dr. Rowan, who my co-author on PEO Solution, a very current book about these oils, said, Brian, I found a study where they do a warm water fish compared with a cold water fish. Guess what? There's 14 times less DHA in the tissue of the warm water fish than the cold water because we don't need it. We are at 98.6. Fish oil spontaneously becomes rancid at room temperature. This is why when you used to go in the supermarket and smell the fish section, it'd be horrible. Now they're using peroxide bleach. Who knows what they're using to get rid of that smell. But it goes rancid in the body immediately. You take a fish oil capsule. It's called the penicillin level for the chemists out there. It's at 19 at best. 20 is toxic. And secondary aldehydes, Dr. Hulbert from Australia is brilliant on this. I quoted him extensively in PEO Solution. Talks about the damage to DNA and everything else it does. Fish oil in the normal amounts they prescribe is a poison. It's toxic. I've been on the record with this. Nobody has ever challenged me and won on the science. They hate my guts because I'm politically wrong, and people bring my name up and go, hey, doc, you're recommending fish oil. This Peskin guy says it's a poison, and I take money out of their pocketbook. And all my comment to them is just start recommending the right plant-based oils. You know, I'm all for people making money if they help them. But I sorry to interject. I just had to put that in there. So it's
I think that's good for people to know. It's like if you look at all these things and you say, hey, if we have the right ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 in the right form, that there's a lot of value to that. We can reduce cell stress, we can reduce inflammation, which thereby decreases our risk for a number of diseases, chronic pain included. But then when people are trying to do the right thing by, you know, going and buying the stuff on the shelf, it's putting them further out of balance with that.
You're right. I've been involved. I'm a nutritional consultant, obviously. I also have a pharmaceutical, but now's the perfect time for that. If people want an ideal supplement, LA to ALA needs to be 1-to-1 to about 2.5-to-1 as a supplement, because the body has great capacity to utilize what it needs. So most tissues and organs are 4-to-1 in favor of parent omega-6. The muscles, particular importance to you, is 6.5-to-1, and the fat is about 20-to-1. So that's where the 12-to-1 comes from when you figure out everything. Your skin is all parent omega-6. The inner lining of the artery, the intima, is all parent omega-6. So for a supplement, 1-to-1 to 2.5-to-1. But there's two. If people just want to maintain great EFA ratios, yes-supplements.com. So YES-supplements, plural.com. There's a great EFA product. If anybody has chronic inflammation from disease disorder, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, I wrote a whole paper. There's 9 major diseases and disorders in the medical journals that talk about an impaired delta-6 desaturase pathway, and that minimizes the output of what's called prostaglandin series 1, PGE1, the body's #1 anti-inflammatory. I invented the medical food called EZTREC. That's Dr. Rob with the EZ. And that's at goodforhealth.org, not com. Goodforhealth.org. And anybody from your show, I think there's a couple of codes that they gave you for a discount and free shipping on the first order, but a discount on every order. Two separate things. With the medical food, it's between a nutritional supplement and a drug. You don't need a prescription, but you need to be under healthcare provider supervision. So you look at that and it talks about it. But for your average person, the yes supplements are great. Disease disorders, nothing in the world will touch EZTREC. And that gives you the ratios right there. So
yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's what I want people to
get it on your own. It's very, very hard because you don't know what's adulterated. Even at the best restaurants, they're still using adulterated oil. They don't know. The best oils would be a saturated fat like coconut oil, but they think it's going to kill you. Canola oil is a problematic oil. It's rapeseed oil or rucidic acid. It's what the component of mustard gas was. So soybean oil is estrogenic. You don't want that. That's the soy boy syndrome. So there's lots to know about this, but it has to be organic. Just cold press is not sufficient. Organic, you can't have the seeds having pesticides in the plants with any preservatives, pesticides, or chemicals. And the extraction has to be low temp, no chemicals, and the yields are lower, and that's why it's more money. But we're not made to be living in a nursing home at 70 years old, living to 90, half dead. It never used to happen, and that's all you get today. Everybody's in a wheelchair. Nobody can walk. Dementia is rampant. Frontal lobe impairment is rampant. People can't think, especially today. I'm appalled. There's no memory. There's no laser focus. Just imagine your kid being in school with the kind of attention I have. I'm up at 4 in the morning, go to bed at midnight. Boom, boom, boom. Laser attention. And it's not coffee. It's not I drink coffee, but I can have coffee and go to bed. It's the oils. They just make it where you're not tired. So we have huge physician following and healthcare practitioner following in gyms, in pain management, athletes, weight loss, the diseases, of course, because that's where I specialize. But it also helps cut your cravings for carbs because carbs are a complete non-essential. Carbs go one place, makes you fat. Now, for energy, you burn them up if you're doing exercise.
If you're being active.
And energy, but if you're not, you just get fatter, then you need to do the exercise to burn it. But excellent question. So there's 2 formulations that I specialized in. Took years, and of course, everybody goes, Brian, do you use it yourself? Of course I use it myself. If I didn't use one of them, I'd be dead right now because I had a genetic problem with my aorta. On the top of it, the aortic flap, 2 of the flaps were seized together. So my aorta was 9.2 centimeters big. It's supposed to be 3. So a doctor hears a little heart murmur. Brian, you ought to get an echo. So I get the echo. 5 minutes later, I get a phone call. Brian, I got an appointment at 2 cardiologists for you. There's a problem here. The echo is saying it's 8.4 size of the aorta. It's supposed to be 3. So I go, see the top, it's called an aortic dissection. See the top guy in Houston, that all he does is do these 30% of the people, they have this, you bleed out in 5 minutes, you're dead. So 30% of the people die. I know 3 families that have had this. I postponed the surgery because mine actually split and healed itself. I was the fastest healer. When I had the surgery, I said, Doc, I'm taking EZTREC, some medical food. I don't want you taking fish oil or anything like that. I don't want you. I said, Doc, I'm not going to give you a bad outcome. I'll get the prothrombin test, any test you want. There will be no excess bleeding. Fish oil does that. Because I had a fish oil patient. She almost bled to death on it. I said, don't worry. The bleeding was perfect. Had the surgery. He goes, there was no excess bleeding. I was the fastest healing patient he's ever had out of anybody. He goes, what are your symptoms, Brian? I said, I'm asymptomatic, meaning none. He goes, that's impossible. You've got to be in agony with an aorta this size, and you have to be exhausted, no energy. I said, Doc, I barely know there's a problem. If I take a huge breath, I'd get a little blip, and that was about it. Other than that, 0. His assistant came in. Brian, that's impossible. I said, I have the world's biggest anti-inflammatory. So they don't know this. They just don't know this. But I'm a theoretical guy, but I love when it goes into the clinic. It's like, well, I hope this works, Doc. I already know it works. I don't need another test case. It's all I've done for 25 years. And EZTREC has been out for 25. And yes, the oils have been out for 2.5 years as EZTREC. 25 years I've been in the field with lipids. And it's just gotten better and better and better. But you hit it right in the head. You don't need to worry about it too much. And I take a supplement and not have to worry. And that's what I tell everybody. For $30 a month for your average person or so, it's the #1 supplement everybody has to have because you have 100 trillion cells and it makes the cell. It makes your skin, makes your fingernails, makes the inner lining of the artery, the intima. So it's actually physiologic. It's not an enzyme or a coenzyme like vitamins, minerals, any of this other stuff. So it's fundamentally different. Excellent question.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. We talk about these things, and this is why I'm kind of talking about I guess the balance of this is I don't want people to think like, let me just stay away from these things because I hear that there's these negatives that come from it.
There's none kind with the EFAs in a conservative ratio. Now you start getting the fish oil, and here's the problem, Doc, with that. They do a short-term study, And again, if you don't have the parents, you're not going to have the derivatives. So you may get a temporary positive effect for a month. But after a year, for example, our timing is perfect. Fish, krill, marine oil ruin mitochondria. That's the energy producers, causing lack of cellular energy and even congestive heart failure. This just came out 2018, Frontiers of Cardiovascular Medicine and Journal of Biological Chemistry. See, no physician is going to be reading that. Here's a quote. Parent omega-6 rescues, fixes the damage of the major remodeling in the cardiolipin lipidome. Cardiolipin is the inner layer of the mitochondria. Now we have 100 trillion cells. Every cell has even hundreds of mitochondria. So there's actually more mitochondria than there are tissue and organ cells. They're your cellular energy. So if you're tired, if your tissues aren't healing, your mitochondria is down because it doesn't have the energy. The major remodeling, quote, induced by long-term intake of DHA. It's not the loss of parent omega-6 alone, so the deficiency of the 6 alone is not the issue. It was the replacement of the parent omega-6 with DHA that promoted the reduction in activities. I've never seen any publication or newsletter outside of anybody that knows me, of course, pick this up and reference it. So the overdose of the fish oil is giving you congestive heart failure. This is why I get so passionate about this. I'm giving you Frontiers of Cardiovascular Medicine, Journal of Biological Chemistry, the quote, but I'm controversial. This is what kills me. I'm conservative as the dickens. I don't want anything more than 8-fold normal amount of anything. Forget 100 to 1,000 times super pharmacologic overdose like these fish oil people because they haven't given you the calculation. I'm extremely conservative. So they say this. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, that's powerful. So in that, just to like kind of
isn't that unbelievable?
Home. Yeah, that's wild.
I've never seen anybody reference that. 2018.
In that, and that's the perfect kind of I think maybe citation that goes back to what we're talking about is that in this the only thing that happened is people are elevating the wrong thing, the wrong essential fatty acid.
It's a nail in the head. DHA is not essential. It's a derivative. So remember, they even used the wrong term that I go ballistic over. That's why I came up with parent essential oils. And parent is used in the medical journal. I didn't come up with the word parent, but parent essential oils I did. But they're calling EPA and DHA an essential fatty acid in EFA, and it's not. So if you don't even know what's essential and what's not essential, how the heck can I listen to you? You don't know what you're talking. And what I say is if this was politics, if this was art, your opinion being wrong is one thing, but around the world, in my lectures, I say, if I'm wrong, I deserve to be shot. You're putting your life in my hands by listening. And I don't want Brian followers. I just want people going, hey, this guy is unlike anybody I've ever heard. I've never heard anybody give these kind of references. I need to look at this guy. I just want to open you up to looking and going, maybe what I'm doing is wrong. I want you making your own decision. I don't want you being a follower of me. And that's why I try and actually be offensive. And, I'm not real collegial. I love physicians. They try and they care. And people like yourself that want to reduce pain and help people get their range of motion back. But for physicians that are wrong, I can't be nice with them because everybody's not right. And if I'm nice and let you keep doing it, you're harming people. I'm committing a sin. That's why I'm so brutal. It's in your best interest, and the average person doesn't have a spokesman like me. I've got a hell of a baseball bat, and I have a huge following. I'm probably the biggest in the world when it comes to EFAs and physiologic EFAs. And the average person doesn't have a spokesman. The misinformation is just so rampant, like you said, that something's got to be done, or these diseases, younger and young. I don't want to see people having heart attacks. Now you're getting infants that have heart problems. I was just over at a place yesterday, and they were talking about a woman that's had, babies not born yet with a heart issue, and this is from the adulterated oil she's getting. And women that are pregnant need to know this too. Nature's brutal. All the EFAs will be taken from you and given to the kid. This is why the women take a year and a half today to pop back after childbirth, because they're so deficient in the EFAs. You shouldn't be getting stretch marks. You shouldn't be exhausted. You shouldn't be gaining 50 plus pounds. You shouldn't have an appetite that's if you get the oils, it goes into the kid. And it's just so simple when you hit the nail on the head like you do, Doc. You got it right in the head. Adulterated versus unadulterated organic. Done.
Tell us about some of the books, Brian.
I have 24-hour diet, which is great for anybody that wants a diet approach with this. It's a lot of the same information, of course, but different focus. And physicians asked me to write this book, said, Brian, I want a science-based book. And years ago, there were martinis and whipped cream, calories don't count. EADS did a great book, Protein Power, a lot of science in that. But today, there's nothing. There's just people yapping, giving studies and their guesses. And then it's the same, quote, nutritionist telling you today, keto diet, carnivore diet. Wait a minute. 15 years ago, weren't you the high-carb nutritionist? Yeah. So why should I listen to you now because you're parroting today's thing? Uh-huh. I was at Texas Southern University, and I walked out in the nutrition department because the head guy had a heart attack. He's walking around with a can of oxygen. And I go, Professor, if anybody should know how to not to have a heart problem, shouldn't it be you? And the guy that brought me in there's slinking in his chair. How can you say this? See the president of the university because he wanted me there. And I said, I can't be in the nutrition department. He goes, I'm not thrilled with the guy either. I said, I need to be in the pharmacy department because that's hard quantitative science. I said, but they're not going to like me. I'm not a registered pharmacist. They did like me. I brought them 24-hour diet, and they said, you hit the nail on the head because this is the way our parents ate, and you've explained why the carbohydrate cravings and everything. So 24-hour diet for a diet focus, PEO solution, parent essential oils, for the focus on these oils, and Hidden Story of Cancer for anybody that has cancer. That book has been translated in 3 languages, sold over 40,000 copies. It was translated into Dutch, 7,000 copies sold in the Netherlands at a $60 price tag. And if people look at brianpeskin.com, B as in boy, R-I-A-N, P as in parent, ESKIN.com, there's the whole program. Everything is available digitally. I put it at $30. 3 books, videos, 20 reports. So if you just want to look at cancer, if you just want to look at carbs, if you just want to look at soy, 90% of my written work is there. I'm basically giving it away because I want you healthy, and there's no promoting any supplements or anything. People have complained, well, I'd like to read the book and get a supplement. I don't do that. I give you the science. If you want to know a specific supplement, I've given you some that I consult for, but send an email or find something. I'm a science guy, and I want you making your own decision, but it's all there, and I'm the only one, to my knowledge, in the world that gives you the exact quote out of the medical textbook or medical journal. I will translate it if it's technical, because it usually is, and on the page, you don't go to the end, you don't go to the index, where that came from, because everybody else doesn't want you to see it. See, I won't do quotes of quotes. I used to go nuts going over to MD Anderson's medical library. I'd get a medical journal paper, read it, and there'd be an article referenced. And I'd go, do I believe what these guys are saying? No, I never do. I need to see the article, because what they do today is they take it and act like the article said this, never said any such thing. But they know you're not going to pull it. You don't have time. Doctors don't have time, so I understand that too. That's why I specialize. Nobody has time giving everybody information they haven't seen before. So I don't regurgitate the garbage you've seen. And even in the medical journals, they all say 90% of the same stuff. And a lot of it's just regurgitated. They don't even understand what they're writing. It appalls me when I read this stuff. Most of the stuff shouldn't even be written. But it's all there, brianpeskin.com, $30. And you can choose what you want. It'll stay on your computer. You just download it forever. And
Love
beautifully indexed. I spent a lot of money getting first-rate indexers. So you put in the book the topic you want. Boom. And then I've got about 20 special reports, again, for physicians typically. But I guarantee you will understand it, because I make it very understandable. And I try and be as extensive as possible. So...
yeah, I love it. I think that a lot of people will definitely want to look at that.
I hope they appreciate it. I drive everybody crazy, because before I publish anything, it goes through 100 revisions. Brian, you can always change a comma or a word. I said, it'll be done when no, you can't. There's not a word to change. It's crystal clear. I have to have an idiot proof, so I want you reading it that there's no physiology, no biochemistry, no this. I want you reading it, the MD. I want you reading it that's the PhD in chemistry. And all of them better go, I got it, I understand it, I'm happy with it, regardless of my level of understanding. And
Brian, we had a couple of kind of rapid fire questions that a lot of people submitted for some of this stuff.
Sure.
Of course, a lot of it around chronic pain and
yes.
inflammation. What's your pitch on that? So a number of these were like, look, I've been told to take this for chronic pain. Fish oil should help me with inflammation. We've obviously exhausted that study, but
for inflammation at all. Short term, it may help you. There's TV ads, I know, but long term, you read the mitochondria. You'll get congestive heart failure. You'll also end up getting skin cancer because it gets displaced everywhere. For example, there's no fish oil in the skin. You're on those doses of fish oil for a year, you'll get those age spots called lipofuscin. It is the temperature on your skin that's killing. Remember, fish oil is rancid at room temp, 70 degrees. You're out in the sun at 100. What do you think's happening? Everything's. So it's not fish oil. You want the parent EFAs, the omega-6. When you go down the chain, it's called delta-6 desaturase, and that is the first step of the parent omega-6 to bring it to GLA. And then it goes prostaglandin series 1, which is your #1 anti-inflammatory. And I specialize in increasing natural production. This is not a preformed thing like chondroitin or, there's all turmeric, there's all kinds of stuff that may be effective. I'm not saying they're not. Yeah. But there's nothing that works in this manner by giving your body the substrate of what it needs so it can make this.
Yeah.
And the result, I told you, I had the aortic dissection, 5-hour surgery, chest split open. I said, I want no opioids. I want no codeine. I want nothing except my EZTREC. The pain level was nothing. I was out of there in 5 days. That's all I did. I just had a relative total hip replacement. 2 weeks, no pain. Other people he knows, 3-4 months, hurts like the dickens. Yeah. People have fallen on their head. I just had a colleague, wife leg got stuck, fell face forward, concrete floor, could not use her hands. For whatever reason, her hand, she couldn't use them. Stops the fall with her head. He's petrified, brings her to the ER, no problem. Another one was taking EZTREC pre-treated, 87 years old, fell off of a curb up north in the snow, bashes her head, goes to the ER, stays overnight, no conduction, no anything, no pain, was taking EZTREC. So this is the biggest thing in the world for pain for anybody following is EZTREC. And like I said, Doc, I'll talk to you about your practice and your clinic for this. You will not believe what this does. Weightlifters, the lactic acid burn goes way down because the cellular respiration goes up where you use the oxygen. But you do not want fish oil. Try the regular EFAs for pain, and if that doesn't do it, you can look into the medical food EZTREC. Excellent question, but not fish oil. It is not the answer for anything, and the long-term studies are horrific. I've got more with how great the parents are for anti-cancer with Warburg, if we have time to get into that. But excellent.
It's funny you brought that up. I think probably the second biggest number of questions we got were surrounding cancer, and I know that that's probably a whole podcast in itself.
I was next on my list with omega-6 oils based on Otto Warburg. Here's another one: cod liver oil. We're talked about. That's the best thing in the world, right? Skin cancer, melanoma was up by a factor of 3. This was in Norway. Diet and risk of cutaneous malignant melanoma, prospective study of 50,000 Norwegian men and women. International Journal of Cancer, 1997. Women taking fish oil 3 times the skin cancer. And then cardiolipin. Remember the inner layer of the mitochondria? Irreversible cellular respiratory injury. Quote, major abnormalities in cardiolipin was found in all cancer tumors. Journal of Lipid Research. We get happy to do another podcast just on cancer.
Yeah.
And people can look, if they get my report, Hidden Story of Cancer, and it builds. It gets gutsier and gutsier and gutsier. I had a top doctor at MD Anderson Cancer Center. He made it 3/4 the way and goes, Brian, this gets pretty complicated, you know. Now, he's a brilliant guy, majored in math, undergrad. I mean, big guy, smart guy. And even and it's written to PhD level. But I don't come up with books and have a ton of recipes and degenerate into that to fill up the space. But cancer is really where I got started with Otto Warburg. That was the second book. It was first Living Beyond the Zone, and then it was A Hidden Story of Cancer, then PEO Solution, 24-Hour Diet about the same time. Cancer you do not need to get, and it's all lack of cellular oxygenation. Dr. Warburg showed 35% decrease in cellular, not the pulse oximeter where you put your finger in and measure it. That everybody will be over 90, 92, 95. Nobody has a problem there unless they have a disease or a problem. Cellular, and you're not measuring it because that's clinical, got to be in a hospital biopsy. Cancer is easy to shield yourself against. 1900s, it was 5%. Brian, we didn't know what cancer was back then. Oh, really? I had my hands on the medical books. There were registries in 1900, and the Lancet in 1835. They started publishing the Lancet. They knew full well what cancer was. A moron could see it. It's a mess. It's obvious when you look at the physiologic, you do surgery and see it. There's no reason to get cancer. And it's the adulterated oils. The lack of cellular oxygenation is all tied to that membrane. And cellular oxygen deficiency can occur anywhere. And this was in Pediatrics, 1976, all in the cell membrane with the parent omega-6. This was Dr. Campbell. Never seen that reference anywhere. Restoration of normal fatty acid composition should enhance the supply of oxygen to the tissues. Campbell had it with cystic fibrosis patients. Nobody applied it to cancer. And Dr. Warburg, 35% decrease. It was proven in 55 and 53 in America. Goldblatt and Cameron. Two superb studies. They deprived heart cells of oxygen. All the deprived hearts became cancerous. The ones with oxygen didn't. Then they looked into the bloodstream germinating spores, because if there's oxygenation, spores can't germinate. They have to be in an anaerobic environment, meaning no oxygen. They never germinated. So it was conclusively proven in 53, 55. Again, not a word. It is sinful what's out there. And I'm very good at connecting the dots, Doc. You know, I take this and connect it in a systems fashion, because if it's a problem here, it's a problem everywhere. It needs, it needs to be. And there's no systems people, because I'm an engineer by training. Everything to me is a system. Nothing is isolated, just like you. What do you need for the system?
Yeah, yeah. So have they done a study where they gave like a proper organic, let's say omega-6 in cancer patients?
No. As sinful as that is, I've seen more people following my recommendations, going, Brian, I got chemo, I got radiation, hair's not falling out, energy's there, no damage. And I have a whole paper on what these oils do to prevent chemotoxicity and radiation toxicity. They don't care.
Yeah, because if you look this up and you look up, you know, omega-6 in cancer, what they're going to find on those studies is adulterated.
It's causing cancer. Right. And I've done studies myself in rodents, and they feed a mouse chow. You hit the nail on the head again. The mouse chow has the adulterated oil.
Yeah.
I had analyzed commercial mouse chow. The units were 60 like milligrams, you know, whatever it is, MEQ, whatever the units are. It has to be under 20 or it's toxic. So they're feeding the mouse cancer-causing food. Gee, and the mouse gets cancer. Any wonder? Same thing with people. They're feeding them the same adulterated oil. Oh, yeah, we gave you omega-6 and you got more cancer. Yeah. The answer is no. Only one journal article in 2013 with adulterated and unadulterated. It was in Journal of Integrated Medicine that, again, nobody's reading. You know, doctors aren't reading it. And the answer is no. It is sinful. This is why I really talk to a lot of physicians with EZTREC and health practitioners, and they just start using it. And it's, my God. I get testimonials back, and I tell docs, I said, look, if this wasn't from a doctor I know we'll get the results, but not this fast. I mean, I had one that was an MD off of oxygen within a week of COPD, off of a steroid within a week. I'd say, 3 months. Yeah, a week. And then it kept coming in. The results can be so. But we tell people, you got to be fair. It took you years to get screwed up. Give it 3 months. But the answer to your question is no. All the studies are with adulterated oils that give you heart disease and cancer. And again, it's known that 85% of the clog in the artery is adulterated parent omega-6, and that's what they're giving to you.
So to put this as clear as we could, taking the right organic parent EFA in a cancer case will improve the oxygenation to the cell, which would reduce our cancer burden and reduce inflammation. That would potentially reduce the progression of cancer.
Yes, it also makes it where cancer cannot progress in a highly oxygenated environment. So there's two things. If the cancer gets too bad and becomes malignant, you can't reverse it. Everything is not reversible. And the journal articles even know that. So if it's at the worst stage, you need a surgery or kill it. That is your chemo and radiation.
Right.
I'm not saying never do it.
Yep.
I'm just saying you can help protect against the damage associated with it. But hopefully you don't get to that stage, because it's continuum. It starts out a tumor, which is benign. And then it's the same tumor just goes to fully cancerous, which is it can't use oxygen at all. That's running on sugar, which it runs, but it has no brain. So sugar is yeast. Yeast is stupid, but it grows like hell, right? It just propagates everywhere. It's how you get beer. It's how you get carbonation. So it's a continuum, and I talk about that extensively, and so did Dr. Warburg. That's where I got it from. I didn't get it myself. And so much is known if people will just spend the time. But today, just yesterday, New York Times, more time is spent, Doc, people on their digital platform playing games than reading the news. Isn't this a horrific state of affairs? I think it's physiologic because people don't have the blood flow, and PGE1 is a vasodilator, so you're going to get more blood flow to the frontal lobe. I think they can't think anymore. I'm in Houston. There's horrible traffic, and people just wait for a mile before a car's coming down the road to make sure they don't get hit. They don't have any eye-hand coordination anymore. I'm sure you see a lot of this in your clinic. It's down to nothing. They have no memory. You go to Starbucks, I want 2 things. You give them the 2. And it's like you didn't say one of them. I just tell my wife every day, I can't believe the level we're at today. It is no memory, no focus, no eye-hand coordination, and it's not their fault. It is physiologic. They're not getting these oils because you put the oils in and you got a new person, and you're not exhausted all the time. That's the other thing. Chronic exhaustion. Oh, I see these shows all the time. We're all sleep deprived. You should only need 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night. Anybody saying you need more than that doesn't have these oils. And you should fall asleep within 10 minutes. I had a big doctor, passed away since, in Scottsdale, Arizona. He said, Brian, I have insomnia. I tried everything, every oil formulation in the world. I don't have the insomnia anymore with you. That's so glad to be service doc. So that's the stuff that really, I get depressed that not enough people know about me. My joke is I'm one of the world's biggest secrets, even though I'm, quote, big in a small spot. I'm not big the way some of these internet people are, and they're actually lying. There's one guy on the internet, won't give his name. Cardiolipin is full of omega-3. It's not supposed to be in there. There's supposed to be 0. It's displaced. You read the article. I read the article to you. It's the replacement of the parent omega-6 by the DHA that causes the problem. He didn't even understand that. He's out there saying you need fish oil in there, and he's causing the problem. I don't think he knows. I really don't think there's any animosity with these people, but my comment is whether you know or should know or don't know, it's all the same to me. You're wrong. Yep. And I can't be nice to you without being brutal because people are dying because of you. And mark my words, they will be in pain and they will die over time.
Brian, this is great, man. I've got 3.5 pages of notes that I need to dive back into and wrap my head around. But I really appreciate
my pleasure.
The
and
knowledge bomb.
Happy to come back about cancer and heart disease. We could
we may have to get the teams to set that up. I feel like we could really dive deep into some of that stuff and
no rush.
What are the events around that? I would be remiss. We ask all of our guests, if somebody listening to this can do one thing today to improve their health, what would that one thing be?
Anything that's lipid-based, starting with the cooking oils, organic. Biggest bang for the buck you can possibly do. They're more money, but even Costco, Sam's, all the stores have big organic sections now. So people are aware of this. It's just, what do I want organic? Fruits and vegetables are fine, but they're last on the list. Grains, same thing. Glyphosate you don't want. But the oils, the lipids are number 1. And then, if you have the money, the grain would be next, then the fruits and vegetables. The glyphosate, the Roundup stuff, big problems. It's not me saying this. It's all over the internet. You can look that up. But limited money, you got to have priorities, and it's always the lipids first. Excellent question. And then I hope people check out yes-supplements.com and goodforhealth.org and have those codes. They get discounts, and there's any questions, they can look at my personal website, brianpeskin.com, and they have questions, they can put them in, and, you know, people see it for me because I'm so busy with physicians, but I'll get them, you know, and I will typically answer. If I don't answer, I didn't get your email. Now, when they'll get somebody, I tried getting it, I didn't get an answer, I said I never got it. So don't assume the emails work. I don't even, because sometimes they just don't go through. But I will answer, at least at this stage. I spend about an hour a day answering emails from around the world. And thanks
Fantastic.
Again for having me on. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's Brian Peskin. Thank you so much for coming on and all the information that you're spreading, man. I really do appreciate the time and energy that you put into this. I love the passion that comes through with it. So
My pleasure.